Behind me is one of the most popular and well-known cities from the game Skyrim. It's the home of the lowest of the low, the infamous Thieves Guild, which is probably the biggest reason that players like you and me go here. But what if you weren't the player? What if you weren't the almighty Dragonborn, but just a regular citizen, a common man like you and me, looking for a job, a roof over your head, a quiet life? Would you actually be able to survive here? Well, to find out, I interviewed every resident I could find. I investigated every business and searched for honest work in a city known for no such thing, all in the pursuit of one single question. Would you actually be able to live in the town of Riften? But what started as a simple survival experiment quickly turned into something else entirely. And honestly, I came to Riften determined to stay an honest man. Looking back, I don't think I lasted more than a single day. But if I was going to call this town of Riften my home and survive here, I'd need to tick off every one of these boxes: a job, housing, safety, and food. However, the journey to find an honest living doesn't actually start inside of Riften itself, but rather outside the city gates. As when you first arrive, you're immediately halted by a guard demanding you pay him a visitor's tax. But after either sucking it up or doing a little speech 100 persuasion, you're led into the city itself. First thing you'll notice as you head inside is a strong Nord woman having a chat with her friend. If you eavesdrop on the conversation, you'll hear the name Maven Blackbriar, and how with one snap of her fingers, her word alone will get you sent to jail or worse. Curious, Maven Blackbriar. Got it. Seeing as we're trying to find permanent residents in the city of Riften, I figured it would be a good idea to get a read on the locale, the people we'll be living with, meeting and interacting with on a daily basis. So this fine lady here, we'll get back to her and her friend later. For now, I continue onwards. However, in the span of a couple of steps, I'm immediately stopped and put to a halt by a big brute who introduces himself as Maul. But what's interesting here is that he too very quickly brings up the Blackbriar family. See, this guy here is their personal henchman. If you've seen Game of Thrones, he's essentially what the Hound is for the Lannisters, but to the Blackbriars. Anyway, he warns me to stay out of their way, and that if Maven ever tells me to jump, my only response should be, how high? After this interrogation, I am now more curious than ever. Who the hell is this Blackbriar family? I have to know more. But first things first, we need to find work, and preferably legal, stable work that can secure us some coin, cause Talos knows we'll need it to survive here. In the distance, some work-related chatter catches my ear, so I listen in, eavesdropping on yet another private conversation. This one is between the woman Sapphire, dressed in fancy leather armor, and a stable boy named Shader. Turns out he borrowed some money from this fine lady right here in order to bring a shipment of goods for him to sell. But she robbed the shipment and now still expects to be paid back for the loan, meaning she done did him dirty. Real dirty. So I look down at the poor farm boy looking up at me with puppy eyes, desperate for help, and then jot down in my journal, "Don't fuck with Sapphire." Got it. And head onwards to look for some actual work that won't have me end up like this sucker right here. So at this point, I've been in the city of Riften for all of 5 minutes, and I've been threatened, warned, and I've witnessed double crossings and scams. So I'm honestly starting to get a little worried about my odds here. But I figured the best way to get a lay of the land would be to head to one of the local inns. So when I see the sign for Helga's bunkhouse, I figure that this is the perfect place for me to go. Find a bed for my first night and maybe gather some gossip and clues for work around the locale. However, little did I know I was about to get entangled in one of the biggest scandals in all of Riften. As I enter the bunkhouse, I'm not actually met by Helga herself, but rather her assistant. And she does not shy away about how much she despises her boss. Apparently the work here is despicable. The patrons equally so. She describes how gross, filthy, and well, handsy they really are, and how Helga does nothing to stop it. She also resorts to calling it slavery rather than work, which, as far as your average 9 to 5 goes, that honestly it sounds about right. But I don't just have to take her word for it, as it doesn't really take me long to witness it firsthand.
Hey, Savannah. I hear you like dark elves. Perhaps I could show you what a real dark elf can do to you.
You're an animal, Tithus. Keep away from me.
Ah, so my reputation as a lover precedes me. Care to reconsider?
So I quickly crossed this place off as potential for work. I was about to leave, but then something catches my eye on the counter. A letter. I figure, seeing as Svana here hates her job and her boss, that she doesn't mind me snooping around a bit. Get to know my new neighbors and all. I mean, yeah, technically I probably shouldn't be reading this. It's kinda illegal. But journalism requires sacrifices. And this letter describes a man's infatuation with Helga and how she, well, make really nice use of her body in order to practice her religion. See, it turns out that the boss of this place worships the goddess of Dibella, but this woman has taken it to heart to display her worship of Dibella by sleeping with every man in town to, I don't know, practice her religion, which, I don't know, sounds like a pretty sick religion to me. If you go into her room and investigate in the name of journalism, of course, you can even find some quite telling items. Leather strips and a jar of honey at the foot of her bed. 2 copies of the lusty Agonian maid in the nightstand. And under her bed is another pair of leather strips and a horker's tusk. So, well, I imagine you can figure out the rest. Anyway, since Helga isn't here for me to talk to directly, and it seems like it's outside of official opening hours, I head back into the city with the goal of finding some staple work. I walk around town for a short bit before heading down a back alley and finding myself a general store called the Pawned Prawn. We're poor, desperate, and dawn is creeping ever closer, so I figure I'll go inside and see if any work is available. Inside, I'm greeted by Bercy and his wife Drifa, and these two people actually seem to be fairly normal, honest, hardworking people. And while I came here in search of honest labor, what I was left with was an even worse first impression of the town of Riften. As when I go up to talk to Bercy, he's quite forthcoming and honest on the opinions of this place. And, well, they're not very positive. He speaks of corruption from within the system, how the only thing that matters to people here are coin. His wife Drifa, on the other hand, she seems quite normal at first, caring and worrying about her husband. But I overheard a conversation between the two. Bercy said he looked through their accounting books and saw an entry for spices, and that these spices somehow cost 300 septims. Drifa then feigns ignorance until Bercy said it was in her handwriting. The tune then changes and she immediately remembers the entry, saying it was some very special spices ordered from someone in Whiterun. However, if you hadn't noticed by now, I'm a bit of a snoop. Journalist. As you know, I already read the letter in Helga's bunkhouse and investigated her bedroom. And, well, wouldn't you know, under their shared bed is a bottle of skooma hidden away. Quite the spice, eh? But I unfortunately had to leave the Pawned Prawn without any new job opportunities or even as much as a lead for one. However, my journey then brings me to the buzzing center of Riften, the town's market square, and this might be the first time we encounter some actual opportunities. This is where coin swaps hands, this is where business thrives, and of course, I barely make it 2 steps inside the center before Brynjolf rushes towards me with a business proposal. And I gotta hand it to him, his business strategies are quite something. He immediately calls me poor, which is true, then tells me he can fill my pockets with coin as long as, well, that I'm willing to do a little dirty work. Which, unless we can't find another way, I'd very much prefer not to resort to thieving or any illegal work of any kind. Anyway, I give Brynjolf the middle finger and look around the market square. Or circle, in this case. And there's actually a few shops around here, so of course I light up with excitement, in the hopes that maybe opening a stall for myself would lead to some stable income. However, Medici here quickly tells me that the business is in fact not booming. See, Brynjolf over there, he steals all the customers with his scams and false promises. Then we have Grelka, who is not quite the idyllic neighbor to have around. She is foul-mouthed, quite vile to be frank. She also wants to leave Skyrim as soon as possible. It's hard to determine just how well her shop does, as she's not super open about anything but her hatred towards anyone and everyone. Lastly, we have Brand Shay, a dark elf who was raised as an Agonian. He offers you a job to go figure out his heritage, but alas, that's more of an adventuring gig, which isn't quite up my alley. Also, I don't know what the fuck this man really sells, bits and bobs, Dorito dust and pocket lint. So as it turns out, maybe setting up a shop isn't the best business mogul move. And I mean, that's besides whatever behind the scenes stuff that might be needed, like special permissions, permits, bribes, and what have you. Because you see all these guys here? I'm not sure they actually make that much money in the first place. Brynjolf seems to be stealing most of the attention with his scams, but what really hammered it home for me was when I, well, followed them home in the name of journalism. See, Medici here, despite selling his own homemade jewelry, lives and sleeps with the homeless down here at Beggar's Row, which that doesn't exactly give me the most positive impression. The two others, well, they sleep at Helga's bunkhouse, which brings us back here again as it was getting dark and I decided to, well, stalk and follow these guys home. Returning to the bunkhouse in the evening finally lets me meet the fabled Helga herself, and like her neighbors, she's not very pleasant. To be frank, she's kind of rude and extremely unpleasant. On top of that, she also informs me that I can't stay here, that this place is purely for the working man, and that I should get out of here. So not only does she manage to call me unemployed, she also kicks me to the curb and tells me I'm homeless in like one sentence. Seeing how unpleasant she truly was, it almost made me want to dig deeper into her whole private affair of sleeping around, which you very much can, by the way. But I kind of figured it wouldn't exactly put me in the good graces of the townsfolk. So I quickly dropped the idea again. Finding a job is more important than petty revenge, unfortunately. At this point, I was starting to fear the worst. Maybe I would really have to go to Beggar's Row and sleep with the homeless down there. Riften truly is unforgivable. But luckily, Riften has another inn. A real inn. A place where you can actually find a bed and a place to stay. And it's this beautiful place right here, the Bee and Barb. So of course, I went to investigate the place. As I first enter, I'm met with a room full of life. People. Honestly, it's the most welcoming and warm place I've yet to see in the entirety of Riften. The only thing that's missing to truly make me feel at home here would be a bard, lightening the place up with some song, dance, and music. Seeing all these people gathered in one place, of course, makes me tingle for conversation, interviews. But first thing first, let's get a room and the local gossip. Well, turns out, not a whole lot of gossip in this town, surprisingly enough. I do find it kind of peculiar that I've heard talks and whispered about this Maven person, the Blackbriars, but yet not a whole lot of snoop on them. Of course, besides how dangerous they are. Anyway, I managed to rent a room and call it a night. And honestly, after spending an entire day in a city filled with scammers, thieves, people trying to rob me, and absolutely zero respect for my privacy, I should probably make sure that something in my life is secure. Which brings me to the sponsor of today's video, NordVPN. And NordVPN isn't just a VPN anymore. Depending on your plan and device, you also get access to their privacy-first next-gen antivirus, which can help protect you against everyday threats like malicious downloads, phishing links, and scam websites. So while I apparently can't go 5 minutes in Riften without somebody trying to scam me, NordVPN can at least help me avoid falling for one online. And of course, the VPN itself isn't going anywhere. It encrypts your internet traffic, helping with keeping your browsing more private, especially useful while you're traveling or using public Wi-Fi, which is one of the many things I've been using it for personally when writing scripts on my laptop away from home. So if you want to upgrade your online protection, head to nordvpn.com/cough or scan the QR code on the screen behind me. That is nordvpn.com/cough. Here you'll get my exclusive NordVPN deal plus 4 months extra, and there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so it is completely risk-free. Now, once more, that is nordvpn.com/cough or scan the QR code on the screen right now. Thank you so much, NordVPN, for sponsoring this video. Unfortunately, the only thing they can't protect me from is Maven Blackbriar, so back to Riften we go. Now, back to the fine patrons of the Bee and Barb. I quickly go around and have a chat with the locals to see what I can find. Most of what I find is small talk, nothing too noteworthy. However, I do find some familiar faces. The scamming Sapphire and the thief Brynjolf. As it turns out, this place is quite ripe for opportunistic folks. And, well, I'll be damned if it isn't Helga herself. On a date, I believe? scandalous. The man here she's trying to swoon over is not only married, but also the owner of the local fishery. I have a quick chat with the man, and as it turns out, he's known as being quite charitable. And in fact, he has a little job for me. He wants me to deliver some purchase agreement for this man in Markaf. It is quite the journey, and it would cost me almost a week's rent to buy a carriage going back and forth. But it could be a lead to a more stable job at the Riften fishery. So I'll jot it down as potential opportunity. Anyway, I'll let them go back to business and wish them a good evening. You don't have to bring your own honey, mate. She's a freak, this one. But there's also a few notable individuals here. First, there's Louis Latrouche, this shady man standing in the corner of the inn all alone. Striking up a conversation with him leads to a very interesting back and forth. He wants you to deliver a message to a sippy, and not just any sippy, a sippy Blackbriar. And as we know, the Blackbriars are no joke in this town. Now, here's the catch. He is in jail. And that's a bit odd, as he mentions that no one in their right mind would throw a Blackbriar in jail without losing their job, or worse, unless the order was given by Maven herself. This obviously intrigues me. Now, the job itself sounds shady as hell, and this guy doesn't want to go talk to Sippy himself because, well, he's scared of the guards. It reeks of shady business. However, I do want to talk to Sippy. I want to find out what's going on with the almost untouchable family, and why is he in jail? Slowly, my hunt for a job is turning into an infatuation with the local big bad wolf. On top of that, there's another man in here, Indarin, and he is no common man. He runs the Blackbriar meadery and is very close to the Blackbriar family themselves. He also tells me he's getting rich, filthy rich, running the meadery for Maven. I ask about the Blackbriars, and he echoes what most people here have already told me. Extremely powerful, most likely the ones truly in charge of the place, have friends in every nook and cranny of Skyrim, frequents the Jarl's place more than she probably should. It all sounds to me like they're the ones truly in charge running the place in Riften. That whatever strings they pull are truly the ones setting everything in motion around here. Interesting. Alright, okay. Well, it's been quite the day, so I go to rest in my room, ready to explore all these newfound clues the following day. Which brings us back to lodging. Housing. We've discovered 3 ways of housing ourselves so far. There's the inn here, the bee, and the barb. Lodging here is possible. You can also buy drink and food here, but it's expensive. 10 gold a day for rest. Food and drink is even more expensive. It'll get tough to just break even, especially considering our lack of success in our job hunting so far. Then we got Helga and her bunkhouse. With how rumors go, maybe you can land yourself a night on the bill of the house over there every now and again, but otherwise it's just for the working man. Which, well, we're still very much unemployed bums. Which does lead us to our last location, Beggar's Row. It's not very pleasant, it's cold, it's damp, it's disgusting to be quite frank. But sometimes you have to do what you have to do, and it's cheap. However, I've heard talks of another possibility, a house standing empty, ready to be moved into. Now, you might have to smooch up the Jarl, which I don't think it would be an easy task, especially for a common man like you and me. But if you were to do the impossible and somehow get approved, you'd also need to fork over 7,000 gold. Yeah, you heard that right. 7,000 septims, my guy. That's around 2 years worth of rent at the Bee and Barb. But I'd say that means that so far, at least one of our requirements to stay here in Riften has finally been met. We can now cross out housing on our list. I wake back up and head back into the city itself. Here I'm quickly met by a local merchant. She's selling fresh meat. She seems to be the local butcher, but her business doesn't seem quite big enough for apprentices. So, unfortunately, no work here. Yet, another failure. Close by, you have the local blacksmith, and I only see one man working the forge, a strong, hardy Nord man, and his name is Balimund. A quick chat with him reveals that the current climate of Skyrim with the civil war and all means that he's eating fairly well lately, seeing orders flooding in from both sides. Of course, this gives me a sprawling idea. Maybe smithing would be a good gig. So I investigate, and he does have a little job, but, well, it's no easy feat, and more of a job for an adventuring man rather than a commoner like you and me. You see, he wants me to collect 10 fire salt. That's that's a lot. And they aren't easy to come by. Either I need to buy them for a lot of coin or go deal with Daedric summons by myself. And although they are hard, figuratively and literally, it's not really a job for a common man like me. And unfortunately, the prospect of becoming his apprentice gets squandered fairly quickly, as when I head inside his shop, it turns out he already has one, despite his apprentice looking older than he is. But alas, who am I to judge? He might look old as fuck, but at least he's not unemployed like me. And trust me, journalism in Skyrim does not pay very well. And you might be like, but Koff, you clearly have a job as journalist. This is pro bono, my guy. They don't pay you anything. There's no Skyrim newspaper. I do this for the love of the game. But then I remember our conversation with Indaren from last night. The Blackbriar Meadery. Maybe this is the opening we've been looking for all along. Maybe this is where I can finally find stable work. And I mean, seeing how powerful the Blackbriars are, maybe, just maybe, this is exactly where we'll want to work.
Hey, look, if I'm caught saying anything bad about the meadery or the family, I'm a dead man. I'm the 4th person to work the tasting counter in the last year. The last 3 are at the bottom of Lake Honrink. Just take my advice and just get out of Riften as soon as you can.
So, yeah, okay, maybe this place isn't where we want to work. A conversation with this man quickly tells me that he is the 4th person working the counter this year alone. The rest, well, they're not really around to tell their version of the story anymore. This man is clearly frightened to work here, yet he spills every secret to me. I don't know, probably because I'm so fucking handsome and persuasive. There's only one thing. He just pleads with me to please do not tell Maven. Which, I don't know who this lady right behind him is, because we haven't really made it to the reveal of her in the script yet. But man, I sure hope whoever she is won't tell Maven. Yeah, I wish you the best of luck, my guy. I can't wait to see who the 5th guy of the year will be tomorrow. I then decide to have a snoop around the place. I mean, you know the drill. Investigative journalism has no limits. And I actually find a few letters lying around. One of them is addressed by Maven herself to Indaren, saying, Indaren, if you ever dare to create arbitrary rules on my behalf again without informing me first, I'll have Maul personally show you what your insides look like. I trust that we're clear on this issue, and I won't have to mention it again. Signed, Maven. Now, I don't know about you, but I think that this paints a pretty clear picture of what working under Maven and the Blackbriar family truly is like. It's a constant fear of your life. Sure, she can make you rich, but one slip up and you're erased. Gone. You are replaceable. And it really speaks volumes to what I've experienced in the city so far. Everyone is in it for themselves. What matters here is coin. It's power. It's not about who you are, but how you can be of use to climb another step of the corporate ladder for someone else. I have a more thorough look around the meadery until I come across one of the workers, Rumlin Dreth. And as it turns out, he is stealing from the meadery, selling it under the nose of the Blackbriars. And he wants you to smuggle it outside the city. Now, I don't know about you, but this sounds like a dumb fucking idea to me. I mean, everything we've heard of the Blackbriars points towards an almost cartel-like family, running this place with an iron fist. And this guy wants to pull the rug right under them? Now, interestingly enough, you do have a few options here. You can tell him no and just leave it at that. You can tell him yes and do it, or you can turn him into Indaren, which I imagine won't mean good things for him, but coincidentally, I do imagine it would open up a spot in the meadery. Meaning, if you really want to, you could maybe find work here, working under the ruthless conditions of Maven Blackbriar. So, technically, we found a possible job solution. But let's just say the working conditions aren't exactly ideal. Meaning, at this point, we do have lodging under control, job is still up in the air, so yeah. Still unemployed for now. Safety is questionable at best. But this Maven, honestly, she's starting to worry me. She might be the biggest obstacle this town has to offer. And at this point, I'd almost forgotten why I came here in the first place. Now, there's a few places left with possible work in Riften, one of which is under Riften itself. Not quite in the underbelly of Riften where the dirty Thieves Guild is lurking, but rather down at the murky water level. It's this place called Elgrim's Elixirs. Here, an old couple is making potions and concoctions, and as it turns out, Elgrim is a master alchemist. Probably the best Skyrim has to offer. Unfortunately for us, he already has an apprentice. And well, wouldn't you know, the apprentice, a woman with quite a special name. Ingen Blackbriar, the daughter of Maven herself. I couldn't pass up this opportunity. She's the first Blackbriar I've officially met. So, of course, I interviewed her and, well, shit, I'm in love.
It's exhilarating to observe the effects of my potions on the body. Watching the heart stop, the eyes go blind.
Yeah, this woman is batshit insane, obsessed with death, potions, and concoctions, telling me that what she finds most fascinating is how a single drop of poison can stop a man's heart in an instant. Anyway, I asked her about her family, the Blackbriars, and it seems she's a bit at odds with them. She doesn't really care about political power, greed, and wealth. Instead, she wants to make her mother proud by applying her talents in, quote, darker circles, whatever the fuck that means. But alas, while every color might be screaming red flag right now, I am just glad that I'm colorblind. Anyway, after meeting the love of my life, I begrudgingly forced myself back outside, seeing as the apprenticeship here, yet again, is already taken by another. On my journey throughout Riften so far, I've managed to find lodging. I've kind of found a few job prospects, but nothing really ideal. I have recently found love, which is great, but what about the safety of the town? Is this place truly secure, safe, stable enough to call home? I mean, I've heard talks of corruptions, guards looking the other way, bribes, people being paid to turn the blind eye to things. People get sent to jail, fired, or worse. Much worse. But I don't want to just take people's word for it, so I decided to really investigate this myself. And I gotta say, first of all, the city itself is actually rather secure. I mean, it's surrounded by solid, tall stone walls. And honestly, these might be some of the best in all of Skyrim. And yeah, sure, there's talk of dragons returning to Skyrim, but I don't think anything can truly keep us safe from dragonfire. You could maybe argue that this city is vulnerable to attacks and siege by the water, as it's a port city. You know, especially with the civil war looming and the town of Riften being one of the most strategically important cities in all of Skyrim. But the Lake of Riften isn't really connected to anything. I don't know where this siege would even come from. It's more so a lake to sustain the sprawling fishing industry of Riften itself. But sure, it might be structurally safe and sound, but that matters little if the real danger isn't actually from outside the city walls, but rather from inside the gates itself. And this brings me back to one very interesting person in Riften. She's like the Batman of Riften, a vigilante keeping everyone safe. I'm of course talking about the strong, beautiful Nordic woman we met earlier, Mjol the Lioness. Quite the damn name, I might add. She sees Riften for what it truly is, a city fallen from grace, taken over by the filthy criminals, corruption, and with the long dark shadow of the Blackbriars looming over it. And listen, while I do applaud her valiant efforts to keep it safe, as it often goes, one person and their good deeds get squashed under the corruption of the local government. Which brings me to Mistvale Keep. This is where the Jarl of Riften resides, and it's kind of interesting, don't you think? In all my time in Riften, I've been told about Maven Blackbriar. I've come to know about their family, specifically her, almost like she runs the entire city, and not once, not even from a single conversation, have I ever heard the name of Riften's Jarl be mentioned. Well, her name is Lila Lawgiver. When chatting with her, she tells me about the Thieves Guild, how sure they're a nuisance to the city, painting them in a bad picture, but that luckily Maven Blackbriar is in charge of rooting them out of the city. It's proving her a bit tougher challenge than she had thought. So, you know, they persist for now. See, this is interesting, as from everything I've heard, Maven is in cahoots with the guild. I mean, they damn near clear answer to her. Yet, according to the Jarl, Maven is the one in charge of getting rid of them. Interesting. If you talk to her steward and Nuriel, she'll tell you that the Blackbriars do not run this city. That her and the Jarl have it all under control. That sure, there's rumors of corruption, but that's all it really is. Rumors. Oh, and that pesky Thieves Guild? Bah, nothing but unorganized rabble. Riffraff. Nothing to worry about. See, this paints a very clear picture to me. Either Maven truly have them all fooled, and she's an ally to the Jarl, yet running a damn cartel behind their back, which, I don't know, it screams incompetent and neglect on the Jarl's side. Or they are indeed extremely corrupt and just trying to save face, appear in charge, knowing that Maven is the one pulling the strings behind the scenes, letting her puppeteer the show, which, I mean, that's equally as bad. When I head outside again, it's now nightfall, and in the distance I hear the sounds of swords, weapons, and boisterous soldiers. So, of course, I investigate. In the courtyard of Mistvale Keep, I find a group of guards hanging out, training, working up a sweat. I stand here for a while, watching them, as they take turns practicing on the dummies, overseen by a man in the courtyard. I have a quick chat with him. His name is Harold, and you see, he's the son of the Jarl. And at first, he seems a bit arrogant, but it also seems like he oversees the guards of Riften. And while it does seem like most guards in Riften are all corrupt, he could maybe be able to get you a job among them. Now, this would pose some risks. It could be dangerous work. And remember, we're no Dragonborn, we're just your common man. But he proposes you to run an errand for him, to bring him a weapon that the blacksmith Ballymoon is forging for him. Which, I mean, that could land you in his good graces. And a job, a future among the corrupted ranks of the guards. It could be a possibility, but once again, not really ideal. I'm sure you would agree. It's quite clear the more I talk to people here, especially the ones in charge, that Riften is about to collapse, one way or another. And I only see one person standing at the top of the ashes, Maven Blackbriar. After another quick rest at the Bee and the Barb, I woke up in my room once again. My plan was to go job hunting, but at this point, finding a job has almost become secondary. A loose disguise while I sneak around the city of Riften, trying to unravel the mysteries of the Blackbriar family. Breaking into homes, interviewing the locals. Of course, some would call this trespassing, but it's for the greater good. It's for the sake of journalism. I am sure you understand. And I do think it's almost time for us to finally meet her. Maven herself. But while I work up the courage, I want to go have a few more chats and investigate a few more job opportunities first. Which brings me back outside the gates of Riften. Outside Riften, you can find some farms. A few locals live in the comfort of their homes, away from the blatant corruption of Riften, fending for themselves out here without the shadow of Maven looming over them at every step. And I figured just maybe we could find better luck getting work out here. One of the local farms is Merryfair Farm, run by a couple of Dunmer. The lady of the house actually tells me that I'm free to help out. I could pick some crops and she'll pay me for the effort. And now, that's cool and all, but I'm worried that it won't truly lead to stable work. But maybe working as a farmhand, traveling between the local farms, helping them out to the best of your ability, could be enough to keep your pockets full enough for room and bread. But it definitely won't get you far enough to buy a home for 7,000 septims. There's also the honey farm at the Golden Glow estate, but this place screams keep out at every corner. I mean, it's packed with mercenaries. The entrance is barred with a massive steel door, and again, guarded by even more mercenaries. See, I believe this is where the Blackbriars get the honey for their mead from. So, once again, it's gonna be tough getting a job here, I imagine. And it's gonna be risky, from the accounts of Maven's own employees. Lastly, for outside the city walls, our journey brings us to the Riften fishery. I've heard chatter of this all over Riften at this point. How Riften is the heart of Skyrim's fishing industry. How it's the backbone of Riften beside the Blackbriar meadery. So, I'm hopeful. Maybe this is where we'll find actual work. Stable work without the looming threat of the Blackbriars behind our backs. So of course, I start by interviewing the locals, the workers around the docks. And for a change, I actually hear good things. People tell me about Bolly, the owner of the fishery, and, well, Helga's date from earlier. Actually, it turns out he's a good man to work for. One of the workers even mentioned having worked at the meadery in the past, but got hired here, and that it's now infinitely better. Interesting. Very, very interesting. So, I talked to Bolly again, and he reminds me of the job offer he gave me while he was risen up Helga. So, no stable job here yet. But if you're willing to risk your hard-earned coin for a carriage to Markarth and back, you could maybe land yourself in the good graces of Bolly and find stable work here with him. It's kinda hard to tell, but it does sound better than working under the tyranny of Maven herself, so maybe. And my curiosity for the woman herself, Maven that is really starting to bubble to the surface. I have to know who she is. I have to talk to her. I have to see her presence for myself. But before that, I want to talk to Sippy, the seemingly black sheep of the Blackbriars who has found himself in jail. And this is where I finally, truly experience the blatant corruption for myself firsthand. See, you aren't allowed to just go down into the prison. It's locked. A guard asks me what my business here is. I try my best to persuade him, but he couldn't care less. I then spent a week's worth of rent at the Bee and Barb in order for him to look the other way, and I'm finally allowed to get through. Corruption, clear as day. And down here you see another show of the Blackbriars' power. There's 2 prisoners down here. It is what you'd expect. Cold prison cells, bare minimum. They're wearing rags and dirty clothes. But when you go to Sippy's jail cell, well, he's probably doing better than anyone else in town. Besides, of course, the rest of his family. This man is kept in a luxury hotel, adorned with the finest of clothes. Truly a stark contrast to how the other prisoners are treated. So, I have a little chat with him. And, well, let's just say he's very different from his sister whom we met earlier. This guy is truly what you'd expect from the infamous Blackbriar name. He is down here for murder. He murdered his former lover's brother, all because of a squabble. He allegedly wasn't too happy about his sister dating a Blackbriar, and was in turn murdered by Sippy, who now also holds a grudge against his former lover in return. He even goes as far as to offer you work, hunting her down and bringing her to justice for snitching on him, for murdering her brother in cold blood, mind you. Mind you, he was put in jail for 8 months for this. A luxury jail cell, a slap on the wrist. Truly a reflection of the wealthy elite. Anyway, I want no part in this, but now, more than ever, I am itching to meet Maven herself. So I try to seek her out. I go to the Blackbriar Manor, and man, what I find here is truly disturbing. First, I met with Hemming, whom I think is the eldest son of Maven. It seems like there's a bit of confusion. Some sources tell me it's her husband, others that it's her son, but I don't know. I've seen Game of Thrones. Could be fucking both for all I know. I'm no stranger to powerful fantasy dynasties. Either way, I don't really get a whole lot of information out of this man. He is very tight-lipped. Nonetheless, he doesn't seem to pose much in terms of resistance when I start snooping around the manor. Technically, it's trespassing, but this is all for the greater good, for the truth, and wow. This place is lavish. Massive rooms, a dining hall filled to the brim with food, a massive underground alchemy cellar, probably for Ingen, the new love of my life. Big, massive rooms, the biggest clearly meant for Maven, the empress of the family. There's also some curious letters lying around, showing that even the Empire is beckoning to her call, promising all her future caravans official guarded escorts to Cyrodiil. There's even families sending apologies letters in advance for ever daring to cross paths with her, intended or otherwise, in the sheer hopes that they'll find themselves still alive come morning. It sends a very clear message. Don't mess with the Blackbriars. But the most disturbing thing is down in the cellar, hidden behind a locked door that proves some of the darkest rumors to be true. A room outlined with the Black Sacrament, a direct contact with the Dark Brotherhood. Maven truly has connections to the darkest corners of Skyrim, but no sign of Maven. Honestly, I was about to give up. It's not until I return to the Bee and Barb that I finally get to meet her officially. There she is, sitting across a table with an elderly man.
What in the name of oblivion do you want?
Now, this woman, she doesn't have a lot to say, honestly. Surprisingly little dialogue, but the little she does say hammers home exactly who she is.
Of course. Nothing gets done without my approval in this city. I have the Jarl's ear and the guards in my pocket.
She tells you that she's truly the one in charge here, that she has the Jarl wrapped around her little finger and the guards in her pocket, that she controls the Thieves Guild and has contacts in the Dark Brotherhood, and that you do well to remember that if you ever dare to interrupt her again. She makes no subtle hints, there's no theater, no attempts of hiding her power. She is well aware that she owns the place and makes no attempt to hide the fact. But what makes her truly terrifying to me is the fact that she's everywhere. She's not hiding in her keep like the Jarl, away from the common people. She's everywhere. She's been in the background this entire time. When I'm talking to locals, interviewing them, she's there listening. Her presence is everywhere. You never know what she might overhear and what consequences it could have for you. I set out to figure out if Riften was a place you could make yourself at home in. Find work, safety, a stable, quiet, comfortable life. Riften, despite its walls, its sprawling economy, is no such place. Instead, what I found was a city where every merchant are ready to betray you or scam you for the tiniest of profit. A place where every guard, every innkeeper answers to one woman, Maven Blackbriar. Riften is truly the breeding ground for crime, for backstabbing, double crossings, for constant fear-mongering and blatant corruption. I've tried my best to find work without landing myself in hot waters, but the more I look into it, the harder it seems to become to find honest work. The place almost pushes you to the rat way, to the underbelly of the city where the Thieves Guild rules. And sure, their reputation has fallen on hard times as of late. They're more so nowadays seen as petty criminals, as brutes, instead of the infamous criminals they were known as in the days of old. And sure, you might be able to find some honest work at the Riften Fishery, maybe even the Temple of Mara, or as a student of the Cord Wizard. But at the end of the day, you will always live in constant fear of the Blackbriar family. One wrong step and you're erased. You're simply taken out back to look at the flowers. And who's gonna stop them? The guards are corrupt. The Jarl looks the other way. While the city itself ends up meeting most of my requirements, like lodging, access to food and beverage, finding work here will be quite difficult, especially honest, stable work. Despite that, you'll live in constant fear of everything, everyone. The shadow of Maven Blackbriar stretches so far and wide that you'll never feel truly safe, never comfortable. Throughout my time in this Talos-forsaken city, I've only come across one person, one woman who truly understands the place, who wants to see it changed for the better, Mjolnir. And while I think she fights a valiant battle, this place, it has a way of corrupting you. See, all this time, I've tried my best to avoid crime. I've seen myself better than the petty thieves and lowlives, and yet I've given out bribes to guards, I've trespassed, I've broken into homes. I've looked into the private lives and matters of my neighbors in order to find dirt and secrets. I've unintentionally, in the name of my own goodwill, stooped down to the exact level of the people I despised. This town has a way of turning people with the purest intent into yet another broken soul just looking for coin. And that is the reason why I don't think you'd really survive in Riften. Thank you to all my lovely supporters on Patreon and my channel members here on YouTube. It truly means the world to me. I'm Koff. It was a pleasure, and thank you for watching. Boop.